citizens of Douglas County, and welcome to the Douglas County Purchasing Oversight Committee meeting scheduled today, May 18th, 2023. I will call the meeting to order. It is now 1:02, and I am Vice Chair Tarenia Carthen, Chairman of the Purchasing Oversight Committee. And we also have present with us Ms. LaTanya Ammons. And so our next agenda item is the approval of the meeting minutes. And since we don't have a quorum, Ms. Ammons, I will push the approval of the meeting minutes to the next meeting. Hopefully we have a quorum, or we can come back to it if Mr. Robinson comes on the line.
Okay.
Wonderful. Okay, so we will go into our old business updates, and that's the procurement department survey. I know you wanted to share your screen regarding that, so you have the floor.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
In January, the procurement department sent out a survey across the county with 15 questions. And so I am here to present the results of the survey. It's really for the year 2022, since the survey was sent out in January. And I'll go through and show not only the question, but actually the individual rating for each particular question. And it shouldn't take that long, but if we want to stop and take notes, let's do so. So the first question I asked was, please rate your level of satisfaction with the purchasing department in the last 12 months. And we can see in the grid, the rating for this question was very satisfied, somewhat satisfied, somewhat dissatisfied, and very dissatisfied. And I did not have let's say an area for people to provide a comment for very dissatisfied, but they did provide comments at the end of the overall survey. And so for this question number one, this is where the procurement department ranked for the year 2022. And at the end, I will show which departments responded to the actual survey. I did ask that question, but the survey was anonymous.
I do have a question for you.
Sure.
Did you have a benchmark that you were trying to get to, or are you using this as your benchmark moving forward, since this is your first survey?
This will be my benchmark moving forward.
Okay.
We did not have one previously. I couldn't find any indications that a procurement satisfaction survey was completed from the department. And so I wanted to benchmark us and so we can move forward and improve.
Understandable. Move ahead. Thank you.
Okay. So question number two is, how would you rate the professionalism of procurements, the purchasing staff? And we did have 2% respond that we need improvement. And so while overall is great, I am concerned that 2% of the respondents said that we need improvement. And to level set, 51 people responded to the survey across the county. Okay. Question number three is, how would you rate the customer service of the purchasing staff? Again, 2% responded it needs improvement. But half of the people thought we were exceptional.
Even in the other slide, more than half of the people thought that it was exceptional or good. 2% is par for core, because you can't make everybody happy 100% of the time, right? Exactly. If you did, we would bag everything that you were doing up and pour it all over all the other departments.
Yeah, so. We would sell it. And sometimes we can't give everyone what they need or want. And so that turns into a negative encounter if they can't, so we don't know why they rated us from a needs improvements perspective, but I think some of this could be also understanding, and that was part of the comments, and we'll see the training as to what procurement's limitations are, what are the policies and procedures, with the county, and just how to kind of get in front of some of the issues that our customers may have. So question number four is please rate the purchasing staff's knowledge of goods and services. So this increased. 4% said that we need improvement. And so with that, we do have internal training. I have internal training with my staff. It is continuous, but not only internal training, but we also take classes from national procurement organizations to help us overall. So it's not just Douglas County, but it's also the knowledge to be more knowledgeable across the board. Question number 5 said, how would you rate purchasing's accessibility when you meet us? And that's either in person, by phone, emergency, or by email. And 2% said we need to improve. So again, sometimes when you need us, if we aren't there, there are times that someone may not be here, but we will definitely look at this survey as a learning tool and how to improve some processes. Okay, moving on to question number 6. How would you rate the communication abilities of the purchasing staff? And we did great. We were the average, good, or exceptional. Question number 7 is our response time. And again, we have 12% in the needs improvement area. The response times are indicative of what's going on, the amount of load, if our response is dependent upon someone else's. But I know that from a personal, professional growth, I need to improve on response time. So that is an area that we will strive to improve. Question 8, the purchasing rules, regulations, and procedures, are they easy to understand? And that last one should be strongly disagree. The 2% is strongly disagree. And it's a lot to understand and how to navigate purchasing rules. In a training class that I presented to the leadership team here, purchasing rules are outlined by state law, federal law, county law, county policies and procedures. And so if you're not sure of your funding source, which does dictate what we can and we cannot do, it can be quite confusing. For instance, we have FTA for the buses, and yet we have GDOT for the roads. And then we have grants from another organization, and then we have ARPA funding. And so even though GDOT funding, the bus funding from an FTA perspective, even though it is federal, they still have different guidelines themselves. So sometimes it's not easy to understand. Question number 9 is, how does purchasing communicate the policies and procedures as they relate to your procurement? This is a smaller piggyback on the previous question. So again, we need improvement. And I am working on like a quick reference guide that kind of helps everyone follow along depending on their funding source. Is it local operating funds, or is it a grant? And even if it is a grant, who is providing the grant? So we're working on those improvements. So question number 10, timeliness of placing an order. 2% rated as unacceptable, and 10 needs improvement. And we know that is an issue. 1 is staffing issue, and then 2, procurement isn't the only peg in the wheel as far as the approval of a purchase order. And so we are always looking for innovative ways to push things through, right? Some of that is training to make sure that everyone that submits a requisition has all of the supporting documentation, but you understand that what that supporting documentation looks like, as well as working with our other groups as far as notification. And let's say if it's an IS, is IS automatically notified when there's a requisition sitting out there, even from all the way up to the BOC office. So we do a great job, but we need to strive to do an excellent job at all times with placing the turnaround time for a purchase order. Okay. Number 11, how satisfied are you with purchasing's ability to help resolve problems with your orders and address concerns? And so 2% are dissatisfied.
I have a question. Why is that not 100%? 25, because I know it's not 100%.
Yes, well, sometimes when we say a problem with the order, I didn't ask for quantifiers, and if an order is received and it's incorrect, how quickly can we get the replacement from the vendor, and whose responsibility is it to?
Is it that some people just did not address that question? They skipped over it, or?
No, all 51 responded. They just didn't say why, or they did not identify a specific problem. As far as the actual order, like Staples takes a long time. Staples and Office Depot take a long time based upon how we order Staples in Office Depot, and so that is a concern. We don't have quick insight on if you order 10 items and 2 arrive, where are the other 8? So the transparency in that. So that's a concern, you know, for your particular order. So that could lend to the why some are dissatisfied with their with us trying to resolve a problem. Sometimes we meaning the department can, and it may be a finance issue, or it may be something going on with the department or the vendor. And so it's just trying to get to the root cause.
Okay.
So question 12 says, what kind of training would you like to see from purchasing? And I tried to sum this up. For new hires, they would like kind of an overall guide as far as what to do and how to do it. Someone commented on New World, and we do provide New World training for new hires, but someone has to reach out to us to let us know that there is a New World user versus, because every new hire doesn't necessarily use New Worlds, but we do provide New World training. You see procurement rules, federal requirements. Someone asked about the difference between a blanket PO and a standard PO, and when is the best time to use it. Procurement cart training, state contracts and cooperative agreements. And I did present a brown bag lunch last year on that particular topic, so it could be someone who was not able to make the training. Some of vendors, and specifically, how do we locate vendors? How do we help find vendors for our particular needs in our department? And then best practices. And so this is helping shape some training that I need to develop for the staff, because I provided this at the leadership level, but I need to probably go in more detail and offer to the staff across the county. So question 13 said, what was the purpose of your most recent contact with purchasing? Again, this wasn't a rated question as in you were satisfied or dissatisfied, which is why, why did you reach out to purchasing? And we want to make sure that we are knowledgeable in the areas and not just send you away. So here's a snapshot of those responses. In number 14, it says, how satisfied were you with the information you provided as a result of question 13? And so 2 were very dissatisfied and 2 were somewhat dissatisfied. No, there wasn't a correlation to the, if you came here for grants and then you were dissatisfied. So next, the survey that I developed for 2023, I'm going to ask people to specifically list that particular area if they ranked as somewhat dissatisfied or dissatisfied for a particular answer. And then the next 2 slides just show a snapshot of the actual groups that participated in the response. So we had a great cross-section for around Douglas County. I think the only group between this slide and then the next that I'm missing is the Sheriff's Department. But I had a great, this was a great representation across the county. It just represented a lot. And that is all I have for the satisfaction survey.
So I think that's a good benchmarking survey, right? It kind of gives you a glimpse of where you are. It also allowed you going back into what you did to streamline for the next 2023 when you do it in January. So you can pick up off of some of the points where you can be more streamlined and more specific in your asking of the questions. But overall, it seems as though it's excellent or good. It's satisfactory, right? Yes, you will have those 2%, those 1%, because again, for every yes, there's a no, and for every no, you can't do that. People will get upset, right? Especially if they've done it before, right? Mm-hmm. So you're coming into a position where you probably do have to put some processes in place that have not been put there before. And so there will be pushback, and that will be incorporated into a survey if somebody has had to experience that, right? But overall, it seems like you're headed in the right direction, and I am excited to see what the survey will say this time next year in regards to where you are in benchmarking. A couple of pointers that I would like to note is one of them I talked to David Corbin regarding BOC slowing down those requisitions that have to get out the door, right? Because sometimes we're not at least, I know I'm not always where I can get to my work computer to go onto New World and approve those things. So maybe streamlining that for the BOC, because once we've seen it, it's been presented to us, we've already approved it, we already put it in the budget. And now when the requisition gets put in, we have to approve it again. So it's like we're doing it 3 times. So I think that's a little bit overkill. So we're trying to figure out a way where the BOC can ensure that what we've approved has actually been carried out. And so there's got to be a better way for us to do that. So we will work on that, and hopefully I can get some of my colleagues to kind of help us brainstorm on how better to do that, as opposed to continue to go into New World, because we slow you guys down. I know.
Okay, you said it.
No, I get it. Secondly, maybe doing having IT to look at how you can actually do short video snippets for new hires that come on that do need New World. So that's something that you can do. You only have to do it one time. You can update it as new things come along. But maybe getting with our communications team and our IT team and seeing how you can do those trainings on video, so that it would be VOD, video on demand, as opposed to you having to stop, get a class together and actually train everyone again.
Okay, that's a great idea.
And those are a couple of my ideas that as you were speaking, I could think about. And we do have Commissioner Robinson, who has joined us. So we do have a quorum. Commissioner Robinson, just to kind of bring you up on speed, the survey was to benchmark the procurement department for all of the 7 or 18 departments that we have, just to see how well they're doing. So if you have any questions or any suggestions, we'd love to hear them. Yes, you have the floor.
Thank you, and I apologize. I was delayed logging on, but I heard every word. So thank you. Couple things. I agree with you, Madam Vice Chair, on the training. That was one thing I was picking up on, which is the videos would be a great path forward. Do it one time and allow people to self-teach themselves. We live in a world of TikTok and everything else, so I'm sure that we can embrace that same technology and approach internally. You can learn it, do it one time and it repeats. So I agree with that one. The second one, I'll take it in reverse to your last point about BOC. And I've always struggled with that. But there is something about the internal control, right? Which is, okay, we made our decision, but that's legislative. But now we got to make sure that the executive branch is doing its part, that everything comes through like it's supposed to. And how do we do that? It should we as a board member, to your point, it's about our capacity as physical beings can't be there, can be delegated some kind of way. And maybe we handle that through our aides or something, but that's something we can talk about. But there is a reason why we have that internal control. If we trust like that, then eliminate it. But it's still, it's a check and balance. So I'm open to your leadership on that one. The last thing is third point, the last one had more to do with right. There's a lot of people that are involved in the decision, you know, like I said, procurement or IT, and those are silos. There's a process flow across. It's an alignment, no different than development services, right? You got the fire marshal, you got this group, you got James, you got that group, and everybody's responsible for their own part, but nobody's managing the process across. So just like externally, people are exposed, like, man, it's taking y'all too long, right? It's like it was, and so James takes the hit. In this case, procurement takes the hit, but who's owning it across the board? So is it really 3 days or is it 30 days? And that's something that's that needs to be looked at broadly and across the board, but it's something we can work through. It is attainable. It just takes us a chance to step back and figure out, okay, but who's aligning everybody to be on the same page and be committed to an overall experience of time through the system. So that would be the only thing I would think of. Just, you know, be thoughtful, be holistic, step back, and as whatever improvements you put in place, it's across the board, but there has to be executive communication to ensure that it can't just be her doing it in her own world and everybody else is not aligned. And so she needs support. If she's going to own it, she needs support from her peers in the other areas to keep to that KPI that we're holding to in this particular function. That's the only suggestion I have. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Robinson. Any other added discussion points regarding the procurement department survey? Okay, being none, we will move into the next old business item update, and that's oversight. Jane, you have the floor.
So thank you to the Board of Commissioners for approving oversight. The contract has been signed and fully executed, and we are kind of starting the process. And I just wanted to just bring that back as a highlight to say, yes, we have moved forward. Yes, the contracts have been signed and they are starting. The first question it was, who is going to be the program manager and who is our IT contact? So everyone is eager, and if the public, you know, was wanting to know what is the next step, we are here. We're in the beginning phases of the integration with oversight from the P card perspective. And so I just wanted to bring that up as information.
Yeah, I think one of my board members asked, can't remember if it was Commissioner Robinson or Commissioner Alcaraz, in regards to, is this going backwards or is it moving forward from the day that, you know, they start? So
they can go backwards. I clear that, yes, and they are going to go backwards for us. So it's great.
How far back are they looking at going? Is it the inception or is it 90 days, 100?
Inception.
Inception.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Inception, because we're less than a year in, so and we only have approximately 40 to 50 card holders, give or take. Okay. So it's not as if it's just too much data, right? And so they're able to go back to inception.
Got you. And as far as oversight for us, hopefully coming out of this, we will have more streamlined policies that you know, and I guess finance and Dr. Corbin can get together to help us, right?
Yes, we are working on a new, not a redo, but an improvement to what we already had. And so we're looking forward to putting that out to internally, but also to the public.
Mm-hmm. Got you. Sounds good. Do you have any questions regarding the oversight contract regarding procurement, Commissioner Robinson?
Yes, ma'am.
You have the floor.
Thank you. Real quick, to your point, it was Commissioner Alcaraz who brought up, can we go back to January? But I agree with the conclusion, which is you need the data. Starting from scratch with artificial intelligence, it takes time to even come back with recommendations. So we'll be starting from scratch. So I'm glad to hear that we can go all the way back and that you need to pre-populate the system so it can analyze, and it's moving forward with live data as opposed to, you know, we got to one transaction at a time for it to get smarter, right? It's got to get smarter. And so it has to be fed. So I'm glad we hear that. So the integration, so IT is involved in this, and it will help integrate or export or import that data over into this system. Is that true? Are they on board?
Well, yes and no. Because when this email came in 2 days ago, and I said, oh, IT, I am scheduling a meeting with all of us because I'm not sure how much IT needs to be involved. And I say this from a perspective of, because we're using the Bank of America work system, it's separate and it's not integrated into our own ERP system. So their downloads may come in straight from BOA, not touch our system. And so the IT involvement may be minimum. And so that was my question, how much IT involvement will be needed?
I still want IT to be involved. Again, we don't want to isolate.
No isolation. I just didn't want to overburden and really understand what their role would be. And so that's the question for next week's meeting.
Yeah. All right. Again, just a suggestion. Our chief technology officer just wanted him to be aware. Yes. And however they choose to move, and you guys will work that out. So that was my first point. Second point is timeline. So here's some guys who are Oversight is experienced. And so they probably have a standard template in how to onboard. How long does it take for them from the time that the board agreed and Madam Vice Chair signed the contract, from that moment on until, since we're not that big, what is the timeline for when it will be in place? And I know it's all relative and I'm not binding you, but they should have that they're already doing this somewhere. Can you tell me that?
I don't have a definite answer. I would estimate 30 days, but I do not have a definite answer, and I can get back with you on that.
Wait, can I have an answer by next week? Just reach out to them and just do what is their standard? I know every client probably is different. It's a different process, but I'm just trying to get it relative.
Okay.
To my last point about this is just a tool, but there's a bigger policy or procedure that needs to be enhanced. I think that the work that you and Madam Vice Chair did regarding our policy is solid. It's just really the oversight component of it, right? That needs to be looked at and how that we now use this tool and who's responsible for using it and how do we enforce that very point. So it's great to have the data, but who is going to be the owner of it? And I'm not saying you, but somebody has to be the owner of it, and there needs to be training and expectations and timelines. So hopefully you guys will work that out, but that's important. I'm sure our vendor can help us frame that component. I'm not suggesting override of the overall purchasing policy or the purchasing car policy. You guys got that locked up. But this is a point, our experience showed us that we have a deficiency, and this is something to tighten up since we're at the beginning of the program. So that's just my suggestion. And just leave it at that. Madam Vice Chair, thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Any other comments regarding this particular item? If not, we will go into new business discussion. The countywide copier standardization, which I know you have been working on for a while. And so
yes, we talked about it, but we are ready for, well, let me start from the beginning and how this came about. I was in a meeting, I ran to the copy machine to make a copy, and I realized that it was, my original was color, but the copy was black and white. And then I took a step back and said, oh, wow, the machine seems a little older. Okay. And so I called Canon, I talked to IT, they're fully involved, and asked if we wanted to have a standardization of copiers around the county who should be used. And IT said Canon. All of our copiers now are Canon, and so we would stick with them. Canon came out, Canon took a look physically at every particular copy around the county, and the request was, I would like to standardize copiers. So if I'm here and I want to go down to HR, I want to go to even the sheriff's department, if they decide to utilize the copiers, can we have a standardization of copiers? And for the public, it's like, well, why if you have copiers at work? Well, our oldest copier here in the county is 22 years old. We have approximately 85, and the newest one is 5 years old. And so we are maintaining old, outdated equipment. And so my goal was, number one, to standardize, but part of that is also to yield savings across the county. And so just high level, Canon came back with a recommendation for 3 different types of copiers, all the same, but the difference was the difference in a copier is the speed. They study the traffic for each section, each department, estimated, high volume, low volume, but they came back with 3 copiers for a recommendation. Leasing versus a purchase. So we can lease for 5 years. Included in the leasing price will be toner and maintenance. It's already included, so we don't have to make those extra purchases. And so then I started to go, we started to dig a little further. We looked at, okay, so we have these the copiers, but everyone seems to have a printer on their desk. And so we're moving in a direction of no longer allowing the desktop copiers because it is a lot for IT to maintain. But in order to ask everyone to get rid of the desktop printers, you need to have a replacement, and thus the standard copiers. The copiers will be color. If you want a color copy, staple, 3-hole punch, a nice tray. But this is the part that I really love. There's a reduction in the waste of paper. So if I'm sitting at my desk and I send it to the copier, it does not print until I actually walk to the printer, flash my badge, and then my job is released. So, and my job is released anywhere in the county on the network. So there's no more whose printer is this, whose paper is this. Now, of course, we know around the county there are departments that have special desktop, like in the tax commissioner's, tax office. We are not looking at those. We're looking at purely administrative print copiers that we spend a lot of money around the county on wasted paper. We spend a lot of money on toner. We spend money on a recurring monthly maintenance contract. I'm sorry, not even a contract. We just pay a fee every month. And we are fixing old machines. And so it's kind of hard to put a true dollar amount on the actual savings. We have some estimated estimate amounts. However, we want to, I'm working on that final list to present to finance. I've already had several meetings with finance and IS to say, these are the copiers that we know we can impact today under the VOC, and then we can present it also to the courts and the sheriff's department. And so when we look towards that, we're innovating Douglas County. We're moving us into the 21st century, but we're also seeing no more waste around the county. Just to look at toner from Staples and the amount of money that we spend, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars just to maintain, because remember, every desktop printer is different. That means every toner cartridge is different. People have cartridges loaded up in their offices just in case they need it. And we're just not a great use of resources. And here, the machines are intuitive, they're on the network. So when the toner is low, it automatically sends out new toner. We don't have to go around and call. And so that's part of the copier standardization. And hopefully we will, so from an informational perspective, if there's anything that needs to be signed, we'll bring it back before we'll bring it to the full board for the plan. But we believe that, we have the money if we can use ARPA funding, we have that. As a resource, and departments have already budgeted for new machines, but we want to move away from a purchase and move to a leasing program so we can always stay on top of technology.
Thank you, Ms. Ammons. I wholeheartedly agree. I have at least, 2 packs of toner in my office that I have not used, and it has been there since I think my predecessor, Commissioner Mulcair, was there, right? It's just sitting in the office because I don't use the desktop copier like that. So that's just kind of like money just sitting there, right? Not being utilized. So I can just imagine if I'm like that, probably there are others as well, right? So, and most businesses do lease. They don't purchase copiers anymore because technology continues to evolve and change. And so, you purchase it, and within 18 to 24 months, it's outdated, right? And so now you're trying to maintain something that's outdated and it's not giving you the function that you really need for what is, today's technology uses. So I look forward to you bringing that before us from Canon. I'm assuming this is a statewide contract that.
Yes, it is. Well, it's actually, we use the Sourcewell contract, which is a
Okay.
agreement, better terms and conditions, but yes.
Got it. Got it. All right, so looking forward to that. And are there any questions regarding the countywide copier standardization as directed? Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Yeah, I agree about the outdated equipment. And I appreciate your thought regarding this one. This is probably like a quick win, but it's important for productivity. So, and again, this is going to be a change if you do take away the desktops. And it's about independence. And so you have a convergence. Let's say you got 15 people on our floor, and now they all must converge at one machine. And what does that mean? What does that look like? So the workflow needs to be thought through as well. I get the efficiency, I get the savings, but what does that look like? And it's not matter do we do it or not. I'm all on board, but think through how that works. You know, there's like I'll use us for example. There's certain things I don't want in a common printer that comes out, right? And so it's how do we manage that? So again, I'm always holistic, step back, look at the whole thing, not just the transaction, but what does the transaction mean for the organization and how we get work done? So that's just one thought that came to mind, like, let's just change management. I'm fine, and we need to change. But that was just something I thought about. The second thing, and the only other question is, but what is the cost of the three suggestions? You got what, 85, what'd you say, 85 printers or copiers? What did you say the cost, or can you remind me what the cost was for those options?
If you give me a moment, I'll look at the
yeah, no, that's fine.
For approximately $300 a month.
$3 a month. $3,600 a year. That's for all equipment.
Yeah.
Across the county, that's all we're paying.
No. Currently, what we're paying, or
give me both. That's fine. How we want to approach it.
It is hard to ascertain what we are currently paying because of all the different methods that we can pay. It's just really hard to ascertain that.
All right, think about replacement value. Think about a building. So just give me the current. So if we were to purchase all 85 machines, so 85 times what, $300 a machine? I'm trying to just get to what is the cost of this? What is the cost?
I'm looking, and again for the public, I'm looking at my desktop for the quote.
That's fine.
High level.
And Commissioner Robinson, to your point of the in regards to some things that you may not want to have just sitting on a copier, I like the fact that Director Amons pointed out that your printing won't begin until you scan your badge, right? So that kind of makes it, if it's something that is confidential, you are standing right there as it's printing, as opposed to you printing it and it's just sitting on the copier for anybody to pick up and peruse. So
absolutely,
that's one security measure in place.
Yeah, that's one security measure. Total, and again, we haven't broken down by department, but in their presentation, we're looking at $16,000 a month across all 85 machines, based upon their initial recommendation. That is for leasing. Right, that's just for the lease. It is not a purchase.
So what is 16,000 times 12? 160, give or take 180. It'll be all in less than 200 grand, just for easy math.
Yeah, less than 200 grand. And I had another calculation, which of course is buried. We've spent $500,000 in the last 5 years on maintenance alone with the current provider. it was astronomical. Maintenance and some toner. That's it.
I get
That
it.
didn't include any purchases. It didn't include, and that was toner from that particular vendor. You have people who order toner from Staples, from Office Depot, from Amazon. So when I say it was hard to centralize, I don't have a centralized number on lease and purchase. I'm sorry, just purchase of the machines. I'm just trying to identify the vendors that I was aware of, and it's kind of disheartening because I can't get to that final number.
No,
Final.
no, I get it. And that was good enough though. I mean, Madam Vice Chair, really, $500,000. But we know how expensive toner is from our own personal lives. I get it. It runs out fast. So I can only imagine a county our size. So and we're paper intensive. I get it. And so I'm not disagreeing with that. I think it's worth the investment. But I wanted to highlight, Madam Vice Chair, my closing comment is that the very thing that you focused on since you've come in was about how we spend. Right? It's the efficiency, everything from telephones to anything else. It's this type of thing. So I'm glad you're here, Director Amons, because this is important. It's just not, again, it's not just about the transaction. Look at the overall impact, and now we can look citizens in the eyes. It's not just about the broader buying fire engines and all that. It's also things that we have to do day to day, and have and translate that in a way to say, like, look how we're becoming more efficient. Right, and that's easy. That was easy math right there to show that this would be worth the investment and stuff. And there's a better way to do things. So I'm glad that you get your mind around this. And this is a quick win. So, Madam Vice Chair, I have no objection. I'm not certain when y'all plan on bringing this forward, either now or later, but I'm on board. So I'll follow your leadership. Hey, yo, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Robinson and Director Amons. I, like Commissioner Robinson, looking forward to it being brought forward. I did hear you mention ARPA funds. The only thing I would say is let's try to keep it in terms of general fund or department funding, because ARPA funds will run out, right? And so we need to be able to absorb this in our departmental budgets. And so that's why I would say not do it under ARPA, right? ARPA is for that one-time spend, those things that we really need to upgrade. This will be, ongoing costs. So let's go ahead and absorb it now, know what we have up front so that we can budget accordingly.
Okay, fair enough. Agreed.
Wonderful. And so we will move on to our next business discussion. That's the RFP updates and status.
Yes, I just want to share my screen one more time and just give you all in the public a snapshot of what is kind of going on. Next slide. Okay, so here we are, just RFP updates. We have fire station number 11 that is closing soon. And that was for renovations. The second one, I worked with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office for really the construction manager RFP for the electronic security system. We're looking to upgrade that, and I'm putting it on the agenda for the next meeting. So I don't want to give any pricing or vendor information in this particular platform, but that's on the next agenda.
Vice Chair, don't skip down. Can I ask about that one?
Yes, you can.
All right, real quick. So what is this one again now?
So the Sheriff's Department, they need new cameras and the electronic system where you use your cards and you're on the elevator, you can get into the particular offices. The system that they're using now is dated, and the particular vendor is proprietary, so you can't bring in someone else to work on their particular system, and you have some areas that just need improvement. And so because of the age of the jail and the need for new equipment, and they want one that is non-proprietary, the first part of this upgrade is to we put out the RFP for the company to help manage the selection of the electronic actual security that the Sheriff's Department would use. So this is like the construction manager RFP. So the bids were out and we evaluated the bids this week. We had an evaluation meeting, and so I'm going to present to the board in a week the sheriff's department's selection based upon the evaluations for the company to do overall construction management.
Got it. So this is not cameras. This is access.
This is access and cameras.
And cameras.
In the jail.
In the jail.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. I'll wait till it hits the full floor. Duly noted. Thank you. I'm good. Madam Vice Chair, I yield.
Very Gaiman.
Okay, the next project is the Senior Center renovation project. That closes at the end of March, and looking forward to those.
End of March or May?
May. I'm sorry, May. Is it end of May? Now, upcoming is we have the animal shelter renovation and janitorial at the tax office and the coroner facility. Those two are in the final stages. I really need to push those out next week. Yeah, there are a lot more, but I just want to highlight these 5.
So I do have a question. So 3 of these, so we have the sheriff's office, the DCSO electronic security system, the sheriff's office and the janitorial system for the coroner and the tax commissioner. Now, each of these are elected officials, but they are using our RFP system to manage the items or services that they're needing.
Yes, they use this department to definitely put out the RFP, to put out the bids. And I was there every step of the way as far as the making sure that all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed.
Okay. And in terms of that, and this is just for my clarity, is this consistent? Do the elected officials always go through our RFPs, or is it that they do their own, or is it just up to them when they utilize us and when they don't?
It's up to them when they utilize us and when they don't. For the janitorial, it does include the appraisal department. Well, there are 2 upcoming janitorial. For the tax commissioner, appraisals on part is upstairs, and it will also include fleet and property management. So because I think of the combination, it definitely, my recommendation with that, it comes through this department, right? But for the security at the sheriff's department, this is the first one that I've worked with them on. And I don't know how they've managed in the past and if they've had any large RFPs before, but they did come to me for this one.
And so I'm always baffled by how some things are picked, where they just bring it before the board and this is who they picked, and it didn't go through our RFP. And when we ask questions, they're like, well, this is who we've always used, or we've gotten good results with them, so we just wanted to continue using that. And so, I just often wonder, how can we streamline this for you all? And so I know I've talked to you about, if they're going to use our RFP system, there are some parameters around, how they should utilize it in order for you all, because you don't have a big team, right? So, yeah. But just wondering that. Okay. Any questions, Commissioner Robinson? You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. But to your point, and I am aware there was a meeting recently held by certain directors of yours with one of our constitutional officers, and this is one of the things that came up, which is what is the process. And while I was more of an observer of sort of that it occurred in secondhand, still, if we're appropriating, we do have a say. It's just how much do we want to put that in play. And there is a pick and choose on if certain constitutional officers, they have their favorites out there. Let's just keep it real, and they'll run their process the way they want to get the outcome they want. Got it. All right, so they're allowed. And so should there be a procedure in place of certain things. Now, when it comes to SPOS and things like that, like the jail, like, no, we need to run that. That's big. I get maintenance and operations. I get insurance and medical. But there's certain things that, no, for this funding, you got to go through us. All right? It's like, no, you got to be accountable. That whole jail was built publicly through us, open. We controlled everything along the way through our vendor, CPS. Right? So I'm just like, yeah, I get it. In cameras, yeah, we need to have that public. Yeah, we need to control that. But certain things, and we need to define it and put it in writing and just know. All right, well, here's what the times where you won't come before us, handle it, keep it moving, you own it. Something goes down, it's on you. We got nothing to do with it. We're allowed. We're safe with that. You have to appropriate. Thou shalt provide. Got it. But to your point, the stress that comes with and the inconsistency does make us a little bit more dysfunctional than we need to be. So I agree with you, but we need to take a position on this just to avoid any types of inconsistency, to your point. But I've got real thoughts on how this should be done. We can't do it here. I'll talk to you offline, but duly noted. But if it's tied to certain funding, to her point, it's got to be a certain way. You're not exempt. If it's federal, it's going to go down like this. If it's state, this is how it's going to be. And so likewise with the county, like, okay, guys, we're the funding source. We're the bank. So we get to define our own rules. So it's something to talk about. It's worth a real debate amongst obviously all three of us, our peers. And so I guess we'll work on this sometime in the future. I just want to make that comment. I yield. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And I've expressed to Director Amos some of my thoughts regarding that. So it's good to hear your thoughts. I know that, there just has to be some type of consistency and, with in regards to RFPs that we put out either on behalf of the constitutional officers, even defining those parameters, those policies, and even defining, what is, the definition of certain things that we say or utilize, like what is a travel reimbursement, what is mileage, what is car allowance, what is all of these types of things, what is janitorial services for the different departments, because with the tax commissioner's office, he has like 3 different functions under him, right? And so how do we address those, right? And so this is something that I think we really need to handle this year so that we can give the constitutional officers and the BOC and the staff, of course, who's handling this, some clear-cut guidance. So I look forward to this discussion, and I'm sure Director Amos, that's just one thing you can add to your bucket.
All right.
Of things to kind of help us streamline the process. Next up, yes, Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor.
Yeah, duly noted. CB 200 will make it part of the legislative agenda this year. Got it. Duly noted, and it is important. I want to go back to just one thing around the sheriff cameras. That now it just triggered the reason I yielded because I believe I came across an invitation to partake in a public safety committee meeting in about a couple hours. I know you got one coming up right now, so I'll be quick. Public safety, that I believe this was the topic, or was that separate, Madam Vice Chair? Any insight? The only reason I asked, if she's going to bring something to the Board of Commissioners, is she in that room? I'm just trying to figure out what that's what I'm saying. Okay, now
so if you and I are being transparent, yeah, this is separate from that. So that's why I specifically asked the question that I did, right? Because what will come before us in the public safety meeting is not related to the RFP. This is something that, the sheriff's deputies did on their own, right, with the company, and it's being brought before us. So that's why I say there's some inconsistency, and this is also cameras, right, for a different function, but still nonetheless it's cameras. So if this is something that we can put together under one contract, right, with one maintenance agreement, with one, type of vendor, with one material and labor, even if it is for different parts of the courthouse or the sheriff's office, then why not do that? We keep separating things out, and I think, it just is to our detriment. It's not, the best way to do it. So, yes.
Okay, I know, yeah, jail is different than courthouse. I understood. I'm just like, okay, now what are we about to do? That's why I paused. It's like,
Oh,
I'll take it offline. Never mind. So I got it, and we can talk about that to that point. You got two
yes,
people in
because
the
I'm,
same area running. Sheriff owns both the jail and the courthouse in relation to oversight. I get it. Right. So why we got these two different teams? What about the leverage? What about like making sure that our purchasing power and like, and I'm sure there's always motive behind everything on why it's separate, but look what it puts us in. And it's like, are we being as efficient as we can be? But our hands are being tied. So back to, okay, Sheriff, come on now. And it really is a conversation at that level. So duly noted, Madam Vice Chair, we can talk about it. I yield.
Thank you. Director Amons, you had a comment regarding that.
yes, I was looking at my notes for my first meeting for the evaluation of the security system. And so some of the notes, I just wanted just to make sure, for the public, currently we have security in the form of cameras, video, locking control, access control, and infrastructure. And so with this particular RFP, the construction management firm will come in and take the project from A to Z and start with an overall assessment of the jail and tell us exactly, kind of what we need. And they will evaluate and come down to the design, help procuring the warranty and the maintenance. And so this project is estimated to be a 2.5-year project. It's over time. It's not just a buy off the shelf and an install, but they're actually going to come in and do a complete evaluation. But video cameras will be a small part of that. So I just wanted to say that for any clarification.
Madam Vice Chair.
Yes.
All right, so to that point, back to previous Board of Commissioner meetings, it would have been, a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, we recognized that cameras were a top priority. Go back to the strategic planning. Cameras were top priority for public safety. That's been codified in our official record. We knew that. It's part of the capital improvement plan. That's on the list at the top. We have about, 3.5 million is what Chief Connor had sent over. Now, this is us. Like, okay, give me a number. It was just us putting a bucket, right? We're just assigning a bucket what that may be. Now we're getting closer now. So so our involvement is obviously it's from afar, it's oversight. I'm just listening to this play out. They're doing the implementation of that desire. I get it. I just want okay, so that's a $3.5 million, and then we've got this. And so I know that 3.5 million was supposed to come out of the SPLOST 2022. All right, so where are we? Are we gonna use PAYGO? Since we ain't bonded yet? So there's bigger conversation from a finance perspective, like, okay, now how you gonna do this? And you got this other thing. So can I put them together? So it's also not just to spend, but it's also how we now fund it, and what is the best source of funding for this. So and again, that's for us to step back and watch all these parts move and make sure we've got okay, guys, have a single view of all of it, and that's all. So I'm just listening. Again, I know we've got different chairs that are running things, obviously, but when we come together as a group, though, it behooves you and I and all of us to make sure that this thing is lined up the right way. Just so that we're not, it's all over the board. That was all, just an observation. I yield. Thank you.
Great observation.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner Robinson. Is there any other items to come before the Purchasing Oversight Committee?
No.
Being none, then this meeting stands adjourned at 1:59. Thank you all for your participation on today, and I will see you at the next meeting.
Recording stopped.